everyone, welcome to TryDay Friday. I'm so glad you could join us today. We are going to just jump right in and we are going to talk about PanPastels. So you can see we've got a whole array of PanPastels. Look at all of these beautiful, yummy colors we have. They all coordinate really well with our FSJ colors. They come in these little trays that are great. They are good to protect your PanPastels. They do come with a little lid. If you don't want these big trays, you can actually stack these. They do screw into each other. So you can just have a stack going vertically, but I prefer to keep mine in the tray. I feel like it kind of protects them better. So today I actually just want to go over some of the very basic essential things to know about your PanPastels. I'm basically going to go over the tools that come with your PanPastels and how to use them when coloring. So you've got, in fact, let me show you a prettier one. We'll use that one in just a minute. But this is what comes in your PanPastels. You've got your foot sponge, you've got your big sponge, and you've got your finger sponge. So, I don't know the technical name for the big sponge, but I'm going to call it big sponge today. So, we will start out with one of the most basic ways to use your PanPastels. I went ahead and I pre-embossed this panel with our Petals Wall embossing folder. It's one of my favorites. And we are just going to take our big sponge, and I really don't need to use an awful lot of color. Now these pastels are not as chalky as some. They have a little more of a creamy texture to them. Look at how great that is. Look at how that's picking up that texture and bringing out that design. I love how it makes that texture pop. And you know, you really just, a light hand is great. And just like with the colored pencils, as we talked about those, the color is something you can just layer on. So start light because you can always work darker. And the nice thing about PanPastels, especially when you're coloring in an image, is that you can erase. You can use your eraser. So if you find that you don't want a certain color, or if you've gone out of the area you want to color in, you can simply take your eraser and it will come right off. And I will demonstrate that for you a little bit later. I'll do it when we're on a more detailed image. So you can see that just brought that right out. I do think I want to do one more layer. Yeah, I definitely like that a little bit darker. So pretty. And these blend so nicely. How many of you, I will say this is pre-recorded, but I will go back in and I will answer any comments or questions. So I would still like to know how many of you have the PanPastels, how many of you have thought about them, are a little bit intimidated by them, you have them but you haven't used them. I want to know. All right, I think we're good on that. Now, a lot of people ask about setting your PanPastels. Honestly, if you wait about an hour, most of the time it's pretty well set. But if you are really worried about it, you can take your heat tool and you can heat set it. I do know there are people who use like the cheap hairspray, whatever, but I have never really found it necessary. We'll just wait a few minutes and we'll see how much of that is set in. We'll check it again in a bit. So let's take our next panel, and I'm going to use our Dance Life stamp set. We're going to use this one and this one. I thought those might be kind of nice for Mother's Day. So we are going to go ahead and use our black licorice ink. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got her on there. Let's just go ahead and stamp our sentiment as well. And I thought this one would be great for Mother's Day, but it also would work really good for a wedding or a bridal shower. And heaven knows that it's just about that season when we need all kinds of wedding cards. So this card will actually be great for a wedding or a bridal shower. So now I'm going to go ahead and take this little foot sponge, and we are going to use our blue again. And let's go ahead and do this beautiful gown. I love that it's just this sweeping, flowy gown. I just think that's so fun. So when you're doing this, you can actually kind of tap the color in, and then you get a little less of the excess on there. And it really doesn't take a lot. Like I said, you can layer the color, so you might want to be kind of conservative about how much you put on there. I think I actually had even a little more than I needed. All right, so we've got a good base there. And now this is something I want to share with you because this is another thing that I've been asked about. I want to show you the best way to clean this foot sponge. I think our tendency, or just our natural inclination, would be to just go back and forth, or front and back, but we actually want to go back and forth because this will keep it from going through the front. This little plastic piece, it'll keep it from the sponge from going through, and it will prolong the life of your sponge. And I find dry paper towel is the best way to clean this. All right, and just be gentle, and you should be good. So now, I actually want to show you what you can do with this little finger sponge. This is really good for more defined areas. It's kind of designed to draw. It's supposed to be kind of like your finger. We're just going to use it for our folds of our gown to give them a little bit of depth. And of course you can use it to blend in along the way, but it does do a really good defined line if you want it. And now I actually will go back to this guy, and we will use this other blue to kind of brighten things up a little bit. Just kind of want to fade off into the bottom. And this right here, this is great because I don't really like that little spot. I don't know if you can see that, where it kind of went over. So I'm just going to take my eraser. I told you I would come back and do this. This is how we can show that. It'll just come right off with just an eraser. So now I'm going to go ahead and clean this off, side to side. And I want to use some of our yellow and some of our pink. And you can blend right in because it won't muddy your PanPastel. All it takes is just wiping it off and you're okay. It's not going to be permanently colored. this is a little pinker than I want, so we're going to add a little more yellow. And actually, I probably have way more pastel on there than I want. So we're going to blend some of that off. Going to add a little more yellow. And now we'll add just a little bit of this kind of hazelnutty color. And that's where this is nice because it's a little bit smaller. You can fit it into those tighter areas. All right, so now let's go ahead and take some of our black pastel and we will give her some hair. And I think we just about have it. Again, love that it erases. All right, so you know, one other thing you can do, you can go as crazy as you want. This is pretty basic, but you can go in, you can take some white, you can add more highlights. But I wanted to mostly just give you the basics so you could get started if you haven't done it before. And like I said, we barely scratched the surface of what these can do. There are so many beautiful techniques that you can use with the PanPastels. So now I think I'll just go ahead and show you the finished project. You can see we've got our beautiful embossed panel. Just quick and simple card. You can see this would be very easy to mass produce. You can have all kinds of wedding cards ready to go. Simple, simple. All right, well, I hope that you learned something new about PanPastels and that maybe you're a little less intimidated if you haven't used them before. Maybe you'll have the courage to try using them. And leave me some comments. Leave me any questions that you might have. And you know, we'll get into PanPastels maybe a little deeper in another segment. But I think this gives you at least the basics to get started. I thank you so much for joining me for TryDay Friday, and I will see you next time.